Are you a technician who wants to set yourself apart? Then the Trusted Technician podcast is for you. I'm Derek Hoferter, coach and trainer at SBE, and on this podcast, we will have experienced HVAC coaches and trainers, as well as top-performing technicians, all sharing their tips and strategies to help you be more successful. Welcome back to another episode of the Trusted Technician podcast. Today's guest is DJ, and DJ is with Geerts Plumbing and Heating in Iowa. DJ, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
DJ, so just to get started, so everyone kind of gets to know you a little bit more, how did you end up as a technician?
I actually started with Geerts Plumbing and Heating in high school. I kind of was just a hands-on guy and found an opportunity to try something different and kind of just locked in, loved it, went to college, and now here I am, how many years later?
Yeah, about how many years later? How long have you been in tech for?
I've been a tech since 2013.
Okay, so that's good. What do you enjoy the most about it?
Really just the interactions with people, being able to help something different every day. Lots of challenges come with that, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the challenges. Like what are you find to be the challenges too?
Anything from, the hot summers, which I'm in Iowa, so it doesn't get too hot very often. But when it does, we're all scrambling. And then the wintertime here, we can get below zero. So those are always a challenge, but
yeah. Yeah, of course. So, you've got a good range of perspective. 2013, so you've been a technician for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
12 years or so. Kind of walk me through a little bit of how has your kind of thinking changed or your thought process changed kind of from when you were first running calls to kind of now in the current state of running calls?
We were putting in 410A equipment and running still with our 22 units out there, and now we're almost all inverter and 32, and so there's been a lot of changes throughout, equipment wise, as well as the process and how we do things.
Tell me more about what's changed with how you do things.
So just recently here, we started with a new CRM at our facility or at our business, and being able to track and actually show numbers to customers right away has been a big game changer for me, for sure.
So by numbers, you mean the ability to just pull up a price book and
Right. Yep.
yeah, that is a game changer, right?
For sure.
Yeah, that helps with the conversations. DJ, I know you were telling me that your goal this year is to do 1 million in
Yep.
revenue. That's a big time goal. For a lot of technicians, that sounds like fantasy numbers, like completely made up
Really.
fantasy type of numbers. So obviously, though, it's not fantasy for you because that's your real goal that you set to do this year. Going back to the version of you 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, would you have thought that was kind of like fantasy numbers or
Oh yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have believed it.
why?
Even I've been through a couple of the trainings, and still, even after a couple of them, I'm like, come on, really? And now here I am actually setting that goal, and I think I can see it. So
Tell me more about why now you see it as a reality to like set it as a goal. Like just just is it because of how you're different now? You're running calls or the process, or just kind of tell me like where this comes from.
yeah, I guess the experience, especially with the CRM, adding that into our mix and being able to present right to customers directly. People are seeing oh, I got a 15-year-old furnace and AC. It's dirty. It's going to cost this much to fix it. What's a new one? And then I can go right in instead of being like, well, let me get back to you in a week or so. It's right then and there, and people are jumping at the bit, which is crazy to me, but I'm just kind of sitting back and showing them what they want to see. And that's kind of how I've seen it. So,
So a bit of what you're saying then is that you're kind of empowering your customer with info versus maybe in the past, like you weren't able to give them all the info, even if it meant what it's going to cost or, maybe the options available. And then, so that just kind of created what? Just they didn't quite know.
yeah, left it up in
Right?
the air. They're grocery shopping now. They're trying to figure out which store to go to. Whereas now I have the power to just, close that deal right then and there.
Yeah. I know you've been to a few of the in-person trainings with us. Talk me through a little bit about like what in kind of getting like this type of training, fall in a process. A lot of technicians on this podcast talk about the process, follow the process. So kind of getting exposed to that now and being through, like, what does it mean to you to have a process to follow?
Well, when we went to the first training, I was all hyped up. I was all excited, ready to gung ho, get out there and start the process. Well, we had a lot of background stuff that had to happen before we could really truly do that, which I still incorporated a fair amount into it. But like I said, we just got the CRM up and going, so we didn't have those numbers. So it was really hard to, keep my mind focused on following the process when I couldn't finish. And so, throughout going through the trainings again and again, as we've gotten closer to being able to do this, it's really helped me just lock in and try to nail this down. And it seems like it's working.
Yeah, no, you've been having kind of a scorcher a couple of weeks here with equipment sales and things like that. So yeah, it seems like your $1 million goal is definitely doable, right? You're doing the kind of pace
Yep.
for it. Yeah, obviously, part of the process is the ability to give options and numbers. But like you said, that's like the finish point.
Yep.
You've got to earn your way and build trust to get to that point. So there's a lot of the process before that point. Kind of
Right.
tell me a little bit about changes that you've made now. Like what did you do before and what do you do now from everything of like going to the house, getting to the house, like kind of give our listeners some details
You
on what
know,
you've changed.
we've always done the call ahead. That's kind of been our a thing that we've always done in our business, but tweaking that, asking where to park, what door to use, little things like that have really, I think, have helped me, at the front door. And then, we have a lot of customers who aren't home. And so that's kind of, I've had to tweak that, but it's worked out really well. Talking about the last couple of weeks with being good sales and good finishing there, I had a customer who was a teacher and he was actually a new customer to us, but I knew him personally and went down there and he wasn't there. And so I knew he was a teacher and he was at school. So I'm like, how is this going to work? Well, I find a 20-year-old furnace. His AC is 20 years old. There's a lot of problems. It's too big for the house. Everything needed to be cleaned. And so I'm like, I sent him some pictures and he basically called me. He's like, what am I looking at? And I'm like, well, it's all dirty and everything else. And, I hate to tell you this, but your furnace is actually, it's too big for your house. And so it keeps going out on limit. And that's why it wasn't working. And long story short, he's like, well, what's the cost for a new one? And so I sent him a couple proposals and he was like, all right, let me talk to the wife. And I'm like, hey, I don't know what your guys' budget is. And I talked about financing and he's like, no, let's do the top one. I'm like, okay.
Oh wow. That's a great story. So there, a number of things in there, especially, as you mentioned like sending photos, videos. Is that something that's changed in how you do things of kind of
Sure.
documenting that and letting what do you think the value is that the homeowner gets to see it with their own eyeballs? Is that kind of the value there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a lot better if they're in person. You know, the physical seeing versus a picture is definitely better.
Yeah.
And I've had a few of those experiences where I've actually been able to do, IQ and things like that. And that's kind of been my niche here too as well lately. So
The IQ products.
yeah.
What what questions or how is it that you're getting onto IQ as a topic with
Um,
like how are you kind of handling that?
Definitely the cleanliness of the equipment or dirty, I guess I should say. Showing them down there and I just show it to them and I don't say anything. And they're like, well, that can't be good. And I'm like, no, not really. It's like, what do we do about it? I'm like, well, we can do this. And actually, a lot of times I start off with, do you think you want to prevent this from happening again? And that right there has been huge.
Okay, that's a great question. Do you want to prevent this from happening?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it, it doesn't matter what the dollar amount is after that. When they say yes, they just want to see the options
Yeah.
and be able to present them right there. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to do something.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I'm sure it speaks to the fact too that it's a homeowner, but that they don't necessarily know anything about their HVAC system, right?
Mhm.
But people just generally know that if something gets really dirty, that's not a good thing with
Right.
whatever it is, no matter what it is, right? So you can kind of trust the homeowner a little bit if you show them something dirty that they don't necessarily need it explained. They
Yeah.
might need more details specifically on like what it's doing to the system, but everyone knows it's bad. And then the point that I'm getting to is they may not have known that there was anything that they possibly could do about it. They might have just thought, well, it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah, and then so they didn't know that there was a way to prevent it from getting like that. So is that kind of what they're uncovering or having a light bulb about?
Yeah, the two that I had that had that, the one was a geothermal system. We put it in I believe 2017, and so it had been in for, well, it's year 5 now. So I think it was last year. Excuse me, it was the beginning of this year.
Hmm.
So going on year 5, and the coil was already dirty. He was just using basic filters. You know, he did have an iWave in there, but I think there were some better options for him. And so just, realizing that it only took 5 years to get as dirty as it did, I think he was like, no, I need more life out of this.
Yeah, especially with the geothermal, where that probably the expectation is this thing's gonna last a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one I had, it was actually a brand new house. It was only, I think it was less than a year old, and went there to do just a maintenance for him, just check everything over. Well, the company that built this decided to run the furnace during sheetrock. And so it was a mess, an absolute mess. I was completely white by the time I got done cleaning it. But that was the same question I asked that homeowner. I'm like, do you want to prevent this from happening? He's like, yeah, absolutely. What do I got to do? And
Yeah, that is a great question. That's a gold nugget, I think, for anyone listening to this. That show. So basically, what we're talking about is you gotta show it to them.
yeah,
Step one, right? And it's not like a conversation that you're having with no context
right.
to the homeowner, right? And or it's not just like you're not just coming up to them and being like, "Hey, your coil's really dirty," and then they gotta choose to believe you
Yeah.
or not, right? So you gotta show it to them, let them have the thought of this is really dirty. Not it's not your thought, it's their thought. And then you're following that with you want to keep this from happening
Right.
or prevent this from happening.
And I would say that's one thing that I've changed over the last couple of years being with SBE is like being quiet. Don't overstep. I was a very techie talker. So learning to slow down,
Yeah.
step back, and just let it ride.
Yeah, that's really true, right? Sometimes it's like the art of knowing how and when to shut up
Hmm.
is the point. But I don't think maybe you can tell me about what was going through your mind when you used to be more of a techie talker. What going through your mind was, I'm gonna show my expertise and show my competency by techie talk. Is that kind of
I,
what your
I
thought
think
was?
so, for sure. You're there to help them. You're the expert, so I'm going to talk about it. And that's not the case.
No, yeah, because unfortunately, that comes across salesy.
Yeah, which is odd, but it's so true.
Yeah, because it is odd. It doesn't seem like it should, but yeah, the really highly technical talk comes across as salesy, like you're trying to overwhelm them, confuse them, scare them by using all this terminology, and then it comes across like a salesperson, or at least it just creates confusion,
Yeah, it definitely does.
right? Like I don't know what you're talking about or what you're asking me to do or why I need to
Yeah.
do that, and so confusion just leads to no's,
Hmm.
right? Because they
Yep.
don't know what to think or what to believe. Yeah, so the ability to just show them something and not say anything.
Yeah, that's been a game changer for me, just not just even with cleaning, the system sales and things like that when it gets brought up and they're like, well, what do I do? Which option should I go with? It's like, okay, well, how long are you going to be here? What are you looking for efficiencies? And then just sitting back and not saying anything more than that and not getting into what it does, and the last sale that I had with the homeowner that was a teacher, we didn't really talk what brand. We didn't talk anything like that. He was like, "Yep, I want the best of the best here because I'm going to be here for a while." And
Yeah,
he did it all on his own.
that's got to feel good.
Yeah, it
It's a
does.
better way to live too, right? Where you're not trying to like force things to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. So it sounds like what, kind of the process that you've settled into is you're just again showing things and asking good questions. Like you've kind of like settled in to some questions that you feel comfortable asking. They tend to have a good result, makes the person think. Is that kind of like how your process is solidifying? Is just around the questions that you're asking?
Yeah, and I mean, I know for a fact I still have a lot of things that I can work on and grow on. So now that the CRM's in, we do a lot of new construction too, and we're a fairly small company, so I have to do, a fair amount of installs and things like that where I'm not out in the
Yeah.
service field all the time. And so really dialing in on those calls that I get to take every opportunity that I can.
Yeah, take advantage of every opportunity. That's I just think the right mindset, right? Of hey, yeah, so what? This is a maintenance on a 2-year-old system, like a lot of technicians have, the mindset of like, oh man, like, what am I being punished? Or waste of my time. But instead, I think what you're saying, like, well, no, you said you went to a house that, that it was fairly new and it was, chock full of drywall dust and stuff. Like there's still opportunity and the homeowner still has concerns and goals and stuff even on a 2-year-old maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an important mindset that I wish more technicians had, that there's no such thing as a bad call,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if you
Everything
go
is,
in with your mind already that way, nothing good's going to come out of it.
yeah, if
So,
you believe that nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen. Like that's just going to
yep.
happen. But if you believe like no, this is a great opportunity and I need to find out what the homeowner wants to accomplish today. Yeah, that's for sure the right mindset.
Yeah.
Right. Well, DJ, I know you're on a hot streak right now, and I don't want to keep you from it. So you've got calls and stuff to go do today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. But before I let you go, is there any, for anyone listening to this, any last piece of advice or anything else you want to put out into the world?
Number one, I would say being consistent and then always continuing to grow. This world's always growing, the changes with equipment and everything lately. You have to continue to grow and figure out a way to set goals and figure out a way that you're going to meet those goals. So being consistent, following the process like we all talk about, but really keying in and sitting back and let the customer do all the talking and the deciding.
That's really good advice. I hope everyone listening takes that advice from you. DJ, thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Trusted Technician Podcast. If you would like to learn more about SBE, you can find us online at sbeodyssey.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate it if you would leave us a review. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.